we're moving away from shape now, and we're going to look at, well, broadly, the topic that we're going to be looking at is probability. So talking about what is the chance of something happening, and we're going to start this topic by looking at what we call sample space diagrams. Now these are really, in comparison to the maths that we've been doing for the past couple of weeks, you're going to find these really, really nice. Okay, so we'll start. This is the only definition we'll have to write today. A sample space diagram basically helps us. So it might be that you're rolling a dice and tossing a coin, and you want a systematic way of writing down everything that could happen. So it's like a table that we can fill in to show all the possible outcomes. So let's quickly write that down, just because I don't think a sample space diagram, I don't think the name is obvious. So sample space diagrams show all the possible outcomes of two events. All the possible outcomes of two events. And once we draw one, you'll see just what I mean. You'll see that they're really not too bad at all. Right, I'd like you to draw me two circles, like two spinners. I don't know if I've got a circle I can draw around, or I might just have to go freehand and see what happens. So draw me two circles. These are going to be our spinners. And I'd like you to split your circles into three. So we've got two, imagine they're like spinners that you can spin round. And so we've got two spinners like that. On this spinner, I'm going to write A, B, and C. Doesn't matter which order you've put them in. And on this spinner, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3. So we're going to spin both spinners and we're going to write down what we get. So we might get a B and a 3, or we might get a C and a 1. Okay, and we're going to draw ourselves a sample space diagram to show all the possible outcomes. And they're dead easy to draw. They're really, really simple to draw. So I'm going to draw myself a table. So I'm going to have a down, and I haven't measured this, so I'm just going to draw a couple of lines and I'll fill it in. A down and then a cross. So I'm going to have one of my spinners going across and one of my spinners going down, and it doesn't matter which way you put those. So I'm going to have A, B, and C going across there, and then we're going to have 1, 2, and 3 going down there, but it doesn't matter where you put them. And then we're going to fill in our grid. So we're going to say, what could I get? Well, I could get a 1 and an A. So I'm going to put 1, A. That's one of the options. The next option is 1, B. Or I could get a 1 and a C. Get the idea? I could get a 2 and an A. I could get a 2 and a B. Or I could get a 2 and a C. And I could get a 3 and an A. And I could get a 3 and a B. Or I could get a 3 and a C. So that's a sample space diagram. Simple as that. Okay? Now sometimes we just need to make sure we're reading the question really, really carefully. Because sometimes I might have two spinners with numbers on, and it might ask me to spin them and add my results. Or it might ask me to spin them and multiply my results. We'll do one of those in a second. But they're really as simple as it goes. Now, the reason that we look at sample space diagrams is because I've got all the results listed, and I've done that really quickly, I can answer probability questions really, really easily. Okay, so let's have a look at the kind of thing they could ask. So they might say, what is the probability of getting a 2 and a B? So what's the probability of getting a 2 and a B? Well, we have to ask ourselves two questions. In our sample space diagram, so now I'm looking at all the outcomes. So I'm looking at just this bit of my diagram. Don't worry about the bits around the edge. I'm just looking at the stuff, what we call the outcomes. I'm just looking at the stuff in the pink box. Okay? So I'm just looking at that stuff there. And I have to ask myself two questions. How many outcomes have I got in that box? Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And how many times does 2b appear? Well, I've only got one 2b, so 1 would go on the top. So that would be my probability, 1/9. Often we give probabilities as fractions. So that would be my probability. Right, let's have a look at one more probability question, then we'll do another sample space diagram. So, what is the probability? Remember, you can pause if you want to add any notes or write anything else down, of getting a 3. So again, 2 questions. How many outcomes are there altogether? Well, there's 9, that hasn't changed. How many times does the number 3 appear? 1, 2, 3. So that appears 3 times. Now, well done to those of you who have put in equals, because you can see that I can simplify this fraction. I can divide the top and the bottom by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. Okay, so that's the first type of sample space diagram, where I've got 2 things like this, and I write them. There's nothing I can do with an A and a 1, I just have to write them next to each other. We'll look at one more with when I have to do something with the numbers, and then I'll let you get on. There's only going to be 2 videos this week, so there's not as much work this week. You worked exceptionally hard last week, so have a little bit of a breather this week. So we'll only 2 videos to watch, and the maths in comparison to what you have been doing is really, really quite nice. Right, let's have a look at one more. Let's just do those 2 spinners again like we did last time. Okay, so let's draw ourselves 2 spinners. You're probably doing this really neatly with you've probably found something to draw around. So again, let's just have, well actually I'm going to have a 3 and I'm going to have a 4, like that. So I'm going to put, now careful, I'm not going to put 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put 2, 4 and 6 on that one. And I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 on that one. Right, and now the rule is kind of a bit like a funfair game maybe. Our rule is going to be we're going to spin and add them. So imagine we're at the funfair. This is an exceptionally fun option. You know, why would you go on a ride when you could spin 2 spinners? Right, so we need to draw ourselves a sample space diagram, and it's going to be nothing more than exactly the same as what we did last time. And I'm going to have one of my spinners on one side, and I'm going to have one of my spinners on the other side. Like that. Okay, so I've got this spinner down here, and I've got the other spinner across the top. It doesn't matter which way you put those. I could have had my 1, 2, 3, 4 down here. Now, you might want to, just to remind yourself what the rule is, you might want to pop a little ad there, just to remind yourself this is what we're doing. So, we've spun them, and if I get a 2 and a 1, remember I'm adding them, so I would get 3. If I got a 2 and a 2, it would be 4, 2 and 3, 2 and 4. So let's fill this in. So I'm just adding the entries this time. So I've got 6 and 1, 6 and 2, 6 and 3, 6 and 4. Okay, so that's my sample space diagram for those 2 spinners, given that my rule is that I have to add. So let's have a look at what kind of thing could they ask us. Well, they might ask us, what's the probability of getting an even number? So what's the probability of getting an even number? Right, well, 2 questions. How many options have I got all together? Remember, I'm just looking in my table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the number on the bottom of my fraction is going to be 12. What's the probability of getting an even number? Right, well, how many evens have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got 6. And now, hopefully you're thinking, right, 6 over 12. I can divide the top and bottom by 6, or you could do it by 2 or by 3. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 12 divided by 6 is 2. So that would be a half. Okay? And we could ask all sorts of things. We could say, what's the probability of getting a 10? What's the probability of getting a number bigger than 7? There's loads and loads of questions we could ask. Okay? Right, I'd like you then to have a go now at worksheet 1. Now, you don't have to be printing these worksheets off, okay? Just doing it on paper is absolutely fine, or do it in your book if you've got your book. Make sure you keep everything that you do, because we'll file it all away when we get back to school. Okay, so please do worksheet 1. Again, send me photos of notes. I'm dishing out loads and loads of achievement points. So send me photos. Ask me if you get stuck. I'm here to help, so you just have to ask.